Welcome, everybody, to the American Space Museum and our program, Stay Curious. I'm Mark Marquette, and we're so glad you're with us today. We've got a program for you about three astronauts that we're so excited about. They're going to be in our museum. Three astronauts, three planets, and your last chance to see the Milky Way this Labor Day weekend with the moon out of the way. And some of you camping will enjoy some of the photos that you could possibly take of the Milky Way that I'm going to show you today, all to help you stay curious. Well, we have had a great week here. We're just about got all kinds of things going. We are on the platforms of Facebook. Maybe you're watching us on Twitch or maybe YouTube. We're so excited to be on those three platforms thanks to our wonderful computer engineer, Jessica Galloway, who's behind the scenes there. She and her husband, Troy, are building our new computer on Twitch Live, and she'll put a link to that on the comments there. And we're happy to have back in the building today Marty Winkle, my friend, co-producer, and cameraman that, like me, is learning this new way to bring you a more quality program and bridge the space between us. So, Marty, glad to have you here, and he tipped me off today to something that was 45 years ago in today's history. Let's start talking about, we're not going to talk about Mars. I got out of order there. We're going to talk about how we're excited to have Andy Allen here Wednesday, September 8th. Andy Allen was a pilot once and then a commander of two space shuttle missions. Two of those missions involved that tethered satellite, and then he was on a microgravity mission in between as commander. Andy is now the vice president and general manager of Jacobs Technologies, which is the umbrella organization of all the contractors at Kennedy Space Center. So looking forward to a wonderful Stay Curious conversation that you will want to not miss Wednesday on Stay Curious. And we've got just confirmed today, this gentleman, Ron Garan, who's been in space 177 days on an expedition mission at the International Space Station and one shuttle mission. Ron Garan will be here on Thursday, September 16th, for a book signing. This is quite an inspirational speaker, and that's what he's doing today. And he's got 3 books out. And let me give you his first book is Floating in Darkness and its sequel, Orbital Perspective. But he's going to be promoting a new children's book that's just published, Railroad to the Moon. And you're not going to want to miss Ron Garan in person. He'll be here from 2 in the afternoon till our Stay Curious program that Thursday. He is going to be working for CNN, I believe, commenting on the billionaire's all-civilian SpaceX crewed launch of Inspiration 4, which is scheduled for the 15th of September. And if that's pushed to the 16th, then we'll have Ron Garan on the 17th. So that's a little bit fluid, but we can't wait to get Ron into our fold here at the American Space Museum, show off all these one-of-a-kind relics that we have, many pertaining to his missions in space. And you can buy these books on Amazon, buy it on Amazon Smile, and contribute to the American Space Museum because we are an Amazon Smile partner. Thank you, Jessica, for putting up that reminder for me. And finally, we're also so excited to have always a great friend of our museum, Nicole Stott. She just lives over there in the St. Petersburg, Tampa area. She is an artist who went to space. She was actually an engineer at Kennedy Space Center that turned into an astronaut. And we did a Stay Curious Zoom with her about a year ago. And she is going to be happy to come in person on November 20th, a Saturday. So you can buy a book to put under the Christmas tree. Her book is Back to Earth, What Life in Space Taught Me About Our Home Planet and Our Mission to Protect It. And Nicole's book echoes her website, Space for Art Foundation, where she advocates space healing and art, with an emphasis on our STEAM education for our youth. So we are very excited to put this together in just the last couple days. Our humble American Space Museum, your favorite nonprofit, is always trying to bring you some wonderful content and astronauts and space workers that you won't be able to see anywhere else up close and personal. So we posted some of those as events on Facebook, and there'll be more on it, but first up, circle the date Wednesday, because we're going to have a great conversation with Andy Allen, who I enjoyed a steak dinner with our collection analyst, Chuck Jeffrey. And as I'm mentioning Chuck, we are going to have our next 17th memorabilia auction on October, want to get that date right, October 9th here at the museum. It'll be in the museum live or live at our auction sites, and you can go to our website to find out all about that. Click on the tab up at the top. Well, I was talking to Marty today, and he said, Mark, on this date in space history, this lander beside the great Carl Sagan there, the astronomer that was everybody's astronomer in the 70s and 80s and passed away of leukemia in the 90s, I believe, is when we lost Carl. But he's standing beside the second Mars Viking lander that landed on Mars on this date 45 years ago, September 3rd, 1976. This very big and heavy spacecraft landed about 2,000 miles away from where Viking 1, its twin, landed on July 20th, 1976. These both had orbiters that orbited Mars for a series of years. In fact, this lander, Viking 2, lasted 3 years and 3 years and 20-some days. So almost 4 years it existed on the planet, while Viking 1 lasted a lot longer, over 6.25 years. What these spacecraft were doing, and I got to just give a plug to Carl Sagan. All you baby boomers know him, but some of you younger people that are out there twitching on the Twitch and so forth don't realize that this was a guy that really brought astronomy and space exploration into our living rooms with the award-winning program on PBS called Cosmos. And he's written a couple Pulitzer Prize-winning books that all are about space exploration and the search for life. And that's what this lander wasn't a rover, it was a stationary lander, and its twin, Viking 1, were doing was looking for life on Mars. And how did they do that? Well, they had a scoop that scooped up Martian soil, put it in an incubator that had a sift on top of it, and in that incubator was 3 different experiments. There was the pyrolytic release experiment, the labeled release experiment, and the gas exchange experiment. And all these had to do with, they heated up, they put water on the Martian soil and then heated it up, thinking if there were living organisms, they would maybe die and outgas the things that would be life, signs of life would be seen in that experiment. Well, the results were surprising and interesting, okay? The gas exchange experiment gave a negative result. The pyrolytic release experiment gave a positive result. And the other gas chromatograph spectrometer gave a negative result. But because of the label release experiment was definitely a positive response for life, but a lot of people have claimed it was a false positive for a variety of reasons. And one of those reasons is it was a chemical reaction, not a biological reaction. Strangely enough, as we look at another picture from the about 6 months later that Viking 2 took, where it landed at the Planitia Utopia site of Mars, there's frost on Mars. And we were just amazed to see that the atmosphere of Mars so thin, it's like the top of Mount Everest where there's not enough breathable atmosphere. But it is dense enough at the surface to have condensation and snowfall, if not ice, or not ice, but frost develop on the Martian rocks. Interestingly enough, these life-finding experiments that were so important and so publicized 45 years ago when these Viking stationary landers hit Mars, those have not been duplicated by the Opportunity or the Sojourner and Perseverance rovers that we've had on Mars. So kind of interesting that for whatever reason, it was a complex experiment, but they really haven't done any chemical analysis for life since 45 years ago. However, another little tip from my co-producer, Marty Winkle, was that Perseverance has harvested it and put in a tube like a test tube size thing, its first samples to be retrieved from Mars, hopefully in 4 or 5 years from now. So always things going on with Mars. And when we talk about the 3 planets in the Milky Way at the end of our show for your Labor Day treat for you to get outside and look up, Mars is not in there because it's so close to the sun that it's barely visible, and this is going to mess up communications with all of the vehicles that are on the surface and orbiting Mars from 4 different countries, actually. And we will see how when Mars gets in the morning sky, then it'll be about a 3-week blackout. So we're not going to hear a whole lot about the Mars helicopter or Mars Perseverance or the other opportunity on the other side of the planet. Good stuff, though, about our Martian neighbor. And, well, we want to have a birthday today. And we love our astronaut birthdays, and we're going to wish a happy 77th birthday to Woody Spring. He was born Sherwood Clark. His nickname's Woody, of course. Spring was born September 3rd, 1944, in Hartford, Connecticut. But he was raised in Rhode Island, in Eden Park, in Cranston, and Harmony Village in Rhode Island. And he was a Punnagasant High School graduate in 1963, went to the West Point Military Academy, graduated in 67, and then was immediately shipped off to the Vietnam War, where he did a couple tours of duty as a pilot. Woody had one good mission, and here he is a little bit later in life explaining that mission probably. He was a one-and-done astronaut for whatever reason. He was on STS-61B, which flew in November 85, and it launched 3 satellites. This was the wheelhouse of what we wanted our space shuttle to be, a space truck. And it deployed 3 communication satellites for different companies, and he performed 2 EVAs, spacewalks, extravehicular activities, working on tools and so forth in the cargo bay that would be used to build the International Space Station. Then he retired a couple years later. Of course, the Challenger accident had happened when he retired in 1988, which was probably played into his decision to pursue work for a defense contractor in Washington, D.C., and he has been a professor at the Defense Acquisition University and lives in San Diego, California. So a happy 77th birthday to Woody Spring. And like all of our astronauts, like we talked about Nicole Stott and Ron Guerin and Andy Allen, they're always in our community doing great things to inspire the next generation of space workers, and of course get those autographs and photos with all of us space geeks that love hanging around them for an hour or so. So let's go to our Get Out of Woody, and let's talk about, this is maybe the last good weekend to see the Milky Way. And if you're because the moon is going to new phase and it's out of the way, and you can't believe how much that moonlight interferes with seeing fainter stars and galaxies and even the Milky Way. But if you're in a backyard anywhere in suburban America, and this happened to be my home in East Tennessee a few years back, this is what you're going to see when you're looking up. I put the words up there, Milky Way, and over on the left-hand side, that is the constellation Sagittarius, the archer that looks like a teapot that is pouring the spout. In the middle of the Milky Way is steaming right off of that tea spout, okay? And to give you, so this is how you're going to look at the Milky Way from your backyard in suburban America. Sorry, you're not going to see it very good. But once you get away from the night sky, like here's sort of the same view, and this is, as I'm looking up here, I don't know, you can see the teapot outline right there. Actually, that Saturn is the bright star, and Saturn's moved further to the left from the teapot. But this is looking west of Melbourne, in about 30 miles south of us here, near a fish camp, and not too dark skies. That is Orlando city lights that you see on the horizon. And I'm going to tell you some tips in a minute about taking Milky Way photographs. You always want to try to get a building or trees in the foreground to give it some dimension there. But there you can see the rift of our arm called the Perseus arm of our galaxy. Our galaxy is like a pinwheel that only has like two gigantic arms spiraling off of it, and that's actually what we're seeing in space, is this arm curling away from us, and in the center is the center of our Milky Way, where a black hole is located. Let's look at another beautiful perspective of a photo I took. This is in the mountains of Tennessee, actually White Top Mountain, for those of you that know Damascus, Virginia, right there in that part of where North Carolina and Tennessee and Virginia all are bundled up right there in the tippy tip of the farthest eastern point of Tennessee. That's called the Tri-Cities if you live there. And I lived in Bristol, which half the town's in Virginia and half's in Tennessee, one of the towns I lived in. But this is a pretty good view of the Milky Way on a reasonably dark site that we would be where you're camping out this weekend, hopefully. Again, the light pollution against the trees there comes from like Bristol in Johnson City, Tennessee, probably mostly Bristol right there. And this was probably a 30-second exposure on a tripod, all right? You can't take time exposures without using a tripod. You want to put your ISO, your sensitivity level of your camera, up above 1,000, and if you've got 3,000 or 4,000, put it up there. And then a big tip I want to pass on is use your self-timer. The self-timer on your camera looks like a little clock with a line through it. That is your self-timer button, and you can gauge that from a couple seconds to 10 seconds maybe. When you push the button, and I'm going to pretend my microphone is a camera, when you push the shutter in front of you, that motion translates into a lot of vibration in your camera. You wouldn't believe it that it does. But that when you do the self-timer, and of course you set your focus to infinity, don't use autofocus, use manual focus and set it to infinity. You hit that self-timer button, and then all the vibration of your camera is taken out, and you're going to get a beautiful picture like this, I guarantee you. And don't delete any photos out there in the field, okay? Wait till you get home and download them in your computer. You might be surprised, because sometimes what you think's a mistake can be a cool-looking photo. I saw Jessica pointing at me about something. Do I have drool on my chin or pizza on my shirt?
We should do it. You can teach me the ways. We can go out some weekend.
Oh, yes. We're getting all kinds of great ideas for programs.
I got a real cool new phone.
And she's got a cut. Yes, you could do this with, we will show you how to do this technique live one day on a Stargazer MarQ program that we'll probably record and show later. But good idea, Jessica. Love that I got two co-producers here feeding us great things for you, everyone out there, to stay curious about. So, but these pictures are fairly easy. Again, get something in the foreground, and if you don't have a tripod, they're $20 at your local big box store. And you can also do it with get it on Amazon with the Amazon Smile program, because that helps our museum give us a few extra bucks. So one other beautiful picture I hope you think's beautiful that I took, one of my best Milky Way shots. This is about 4 in the morning when the Milky Way has gone from straight overhead and now settling down over the horizon because the Earth has moved, okay? And there's a gorgeous shot that I took at the Texas Star Party, which is held in southwest Texas at the Big Bend area, one of the darkest sites in America. And I have a lot of stargazer friends that go to the Big Bend National Forest there just specifically to do astrophotography. And I'm talking about you, Matt Harbison, okay? A good friend of mine from Chattanooga that goes out there a lot and just does phenomenal astrophotography. Any of you that read the magazines and get some of the publications know Matt Harbison's beautiful work there. My shot's nothing compared. This is a snapshot compared to what he does. But once again, maybe a 30-second exposure, 3,000 ISO on a tripod. You want to make sure that it's on manual so that you open up your aperture, your f-stop number to all the way open, as low as that number can go. So high ISO over 1,000, low f-stop number like 3, 8, or 5, and a manual exposure of 30 seconds, longer if you can get by with it. After about a minute, you'll see that the stars will start trailing as the Earth moves. And play around with the wide angle shot and then maybe zoom in on a few. And again, don't delete those beautiful pictures out there when you're taking them. Wait till you come inside and download them, because sometimes I see a mistake that well, I thought was a mistake, and it was, but it ends up being a cool, maybe psychedelic or abstract shot. And you don't know if you got a meteor streaking through there, because you could. I wish I had a big old meteor streaking through there. That'd really make it good. Tell you what would be good there too is if I had somebody on that horizon there standing up, a couple human beings holding up their hands or looking through binoculars or something. Go to spaceweather.com. They have an image gallery every day that'll get you loads of ideas of how to do this. So, well, and we also wanted to remind you that we've got one other shot there. Didn't know had a third shot loaded up there, because that was the shot behind me that I dwelled on there. And this is another photograph that was taken somewhere in, this was again at the Texas Star Party, I'm sure, because you can see those dark lanes. The bright areas are where stars are. The dark areas is gas that is obscuring stars. It's clouds, dark clouds that are like in front of us and the stars. And that's a whole other area of astronomy, trying to see these dark areas contrasted against the stars, because these are stellar nurseries that we're working at there. So a lot of cool, well-known objects in the sky for my stargazing buddies. That red object up there is to my left above my finger. That's the Lagoon Nebula, and the Trifid Nebula is up above it. All kinds of celestial treasures to see. But you just go out and enjoy it with your naked eye, okay? And get you some starshine. If you lay back on a lawn chair and let your eyes adjust to the dark. Don't use a white light to look at your star charts. You want a red light. Maybe paint the bulb with red fingernail polish or get cellophane to put over a light, because the red light will not let your eyes contract back to small iris after it opens up from the night sky. Like I told you, you jump in your bed, you flip off the light in your bedroom, jump in, you can't see anything. 5 minutes later, your eye has dilated open to let in more light, and you see everything in the room. Do that outside, and you'll have a more pleasurable stargazing experience. And who knows, you might see a meteor or two. You'll definitely see a satellite, something moving steadily across the sky that doesn't blink or veer left or right. And if you see a UFO, hey, wave at them and tell them we want them on Stay Curious, okay, for an interview. And one other thing you're going to see in our skies, but not as beautiful as Derek Demeter has photographed Jupiter to the left and Saturn to the right. Derek Demeter's the planetarium director at Sanford, at the planetarium in Sanford, Florida, called Emil Buehler Planetarium. That's at Seminole State University. A good friend of our museum. We're trying to bring Derek in to be on our show more, but because of the health situation in Florida, we're not doing so many things like that. But he is an avid stargazer, does a lot of Zoom live programs. He might even be doing one this week with Jupiter and Saturn in the telescope. And these are some photographs that he took of Jupiter. And you see Jupiter here, and the red spot is over on the far right there, the famous red spot. And look at that, those cloud bands. When we look at Jupiter and Saturn, we are looking at the tops of their cloud bands. These are gigantic worlds. They are both in the east, rising after sunset. You go out at 9 o'clock at night, look to the east, you're going to see the brightest star is Jupiter. And then up above it to the right is a faint yellowish star, fainter, but it's still pretty bright, and that's Saturn. You'll need a small telescope to see the rings. You might get a hint of the moons of Jupiter through a pair of binoculars held very steady. But we'll tell you more as the season progresses, because Jupiter and Saturn are going to be in our skies all through almost December. But tonight, when you're starting to relax for a long weekend, a long holiday weekend, hope you're having fun with family and friends, or maybe just kicking back and chilling out from a hard week's work and recharging for the fall ahead. Look to the west after sunset. You're going to see the brightest star in the sky. That is the planet Venus. Doesn't look much in a telescope because it's shrouded in clouds, but the clouds don't have the texture and layering and colors like Jupiter and Saturn do. It's just a white blob in a telescope, and that's why I didn't show a picture of it. But you'll be watching it till December also, as it moves across our horizon, goes up a little bit, and then it'll drop down during the Christmas holidays to disappear behind the sun in January and then pop up in our morning skies. So 3 planets to look at this weekend. Don't think I had another picture there, Jessica. Nope. And we hope that you all get out and get a little star shine. It's a fun thing to do. For me and all of my astronomy buddies, it sort of transcends maybe just looking at items, and you start thinking about what you're looking at. And of course, the big one is anybody looking back? And I say, heck yes, there's plenty of people looking back at us, because when you figure out how many stars there are, and now we know that most stars have solar systems around them like ours, it is just mind-boggling how many planets could harbor life as we know it, but definitely microbial and other types of life, I say, is just probably on Mars and definitely throughout our universe. So we hope that you go out and get a little spacey, enjoy the weekend. And we have got we're going to be off Monday. Okay, we're going to take the day off, take a break. Jessica and her husband, Troy Galloway, will be working on our new computer and hopefully haul that in. And maybe we'll break it in on a Stay Curious program with you Tuesday. And Wednesday, we'll have Andy Allen, and he's a great guy. And I'm so in admiration of the one-time pilots who become a commander. And he did that. And we'll ask him about that, as well as which was more stressful, being an astronaut or the vice president of the company Jacobs Industries that is overseeing our next trip to the moon, the Artemis program. So with that, on behalf of Jessica, Marty, Karen Conklin, our executive director, and our tremendous staff, I'm Mark Marquette, and we'll see you next week to bridge the space between us.